We're live.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, everybody. It's
Fun with leaves.
Fun with leaves today. It's Roy and Val, and we were going to talk about leaves, I think. Isn't that what we
I
said?
think that's what we got going on here is a bunch of leaves.
Yeah,
Yes.
so this is some casting. We did a variety of different leaves with some different molds. So we have some molds from Color de Verre and some from Creative Paradise. So a couple of different mold manufacturers. And well, I guess part of it for me was it's like fall or almost fall, so I was thinking of
that,
leaves.
And all yours were green.
I know, and all mine are green, but
mine are not.
that's all
green.
right.
Mine are fall leaves.
They definitely are.
Yes, they definitely are.
So we are going to talk a little bit about
yes, and I know we've done castings before,
Yes.
so I don't know, but just for the sake of maybe someone having not seen those, we should maybe explain a little bit about what a casting actually is.
That's probably a good idea.
Okay, so go ahead.
Go ahead. All right, casting. So when we say casting, we're usually talking about fusing glass in a mold, in a ceramic mold. So, for example, you can see all these molds that are on the table, but this is a Color de Verre mold. And you can see that it's got these places for making the leaves. And the nice thing about them is they are, they already have if you can see them closely, they have the design or the patterns in there for the veins. You can use frit, chunks of pieces of glass, right? You have that leftover glass, and not sure little tiny pieces you don't know what to do with.
So the difference is basically is that we're filling a mold with chunks of glass and then taking it to a temperature where the glass becomes molten and it takes on the shape of that mold.
Yes.
As opposed to traditional slumping, we would fuse the piece of glass first and then use a mold to bend it in some way. So it's like little pieces in casting to take on.
You have a mold over there.
What?
You have a slumping mold right over there.
Would you like me to get it?
Yeah, would you? Yeah, so I know that sometimes it does, as Val's pointing out, it can get confusing sometimes for people when they hear the word mold, right? I mean, so there's slumping molds, which is what this is for. And then I think Val's going to show you in a little while that she actually slumped one of the leaves in this mold, right?
I did, didn't I?
I think so.
Which one?
And then there's casting molds, which are these. And so they're different. And the biggest difference is just temperature, right? So casting is... casting we're going into like fusing temperatures, as Val was pointing out, right? Where we need to melt the glass so that it takes on the shape of the form. And then slumping molds we're just getting the glass hot enough to take on the shape of the form of the mold. So I think I said the same thing twice, right?
Probably, but that's okay. I think sometimes it's a bit confusing for people that aren't, currently really doing something.
Doing a lot with it, right?
But I think it's good because they're two different techniques, two different temperatures. They're different. So two different kiln washes actually as well. So
yeah, do you want to talk about that now?
Not really.
Okay. And we've talked about this before too. I know the difference between kiln wash and boron nitride. The zip spray, which I was looking to see if I had some in this classroom, but I don't have any. I was going to grab a can, but
I'll be right back.
If you want to grab a can, sorry. We try to remember everything we're going to need before these lives, and sometimes we forget. So these molds have all been sprayed with a boron nitride. The brand that we're using is Zip, just because around here we find it a little more convenient. But we sell, I think 3 different types of boron nitride. They all do the exact same thing. The difference between them, briefly, is the amount of boron that's in the can, if that makes any sense. So the Zip that we're going to show you here, on a brand new mold, you would spray 2 light coats. And then every time you use it, you would spray another light coat on there. And the reason why we use this instead of kiln wash is that since we are fusing, essentially we're fusing in these molds, that high of a temperature, right, we're over 1450 degrees, the glass or the kiln wash will stick to the glass. I guess you can look at it either way, right? The glass sticks to the kiln wash, or kiln wash sticks to the glass.
Yes, that is probably the way you should say it. I would agree with that one, yes.
And then, so we're using the boron for that. But on slumping molds, we would use kiln wash, because kiln wash on a mold like this will last probably 30 firings or so. And it's a waste of the boron. It's a waste of your money to be spraying these slumping molds with boron. So There you
Yes.
go. Trying to save you a couple of dollars. So.
There you go.
But on the casting molds, you should always use boron. The things just pop out easier. In fact, I thought about this morning. I popped a couple of them out, and I cleaned them up. And I should have left one to show you how easy it is to clean. I mean, really, I just took it to the sink, rinsed off, because it'll have a little residue of the white boron.
Especially in
there.
the detail, like the little veining or something.
Yep.
Sometimes it'll kind of read white with a little bit
it
of the
was
residue.
These were really nice.
But
and then
it washes. It does wash
them
right off.
And they come right. It comes right off. So, which is pretty good. One thing you do have to do with the mold, so periodically, is I would say maybe about after the 8th or 10th time you've used it, you should brush it out, right? So there'll be loose boron in here, and we just use a paintbrush, right?
Real soft one. Yeah,
real
you don't
soft
wanna
brush,
scratch the
and just
mold.
kind of knock out any loose boron, because if that starts to build up, especially like in the detailed areas, like in the veins of the leaves. Yeah, like this one actually has that going on. Yeah, this one's got a little too much boron in it. I used this one just recently, and it did kind of, I think interfered with some of the veining that was going on. So you should brush them.
Yeah, I
periodically.
actually do brush them more
Like
often,
more
than,
often
that.
than that?
Yeah, every couple times.
Yeah,
I just
maybe.
a real light little, 3-second, just to loosen that extra off, then get rid of it so it's not building up.
And the recommendation is, if you're with a boron, if you can do it outside, that's a great idea. If you're doing it inside, you should probably wear a dust mask. The other thing is, for here, where we do it at, we have concrete floors, and the residue from this will get on the floor, and I'll tell you, it's super slippery. So, if you spray it inside a box, that probably helps kind of contain it. We actually have a little spray booth that we use that helps really contain the boron from going everywhere. But it can get on the floor, and it can be pretty slippery, right? So,
So you have to be careful, because we have to treat the floor out there a lot. Because
we have to mop it up all the time. So I can feel it on my hands right now, actually, because I touched one of the molds earlier. But so that's the difference between boron and
regular kiln wash,
regular
right?
kiln wash,
Yep.
right. Good.
So then
we, so I'm going to show one real quick that I did, if you guys don't mind. So this is the Monstera leaf, and this is a color de verre mold. And one of the nice things about color de verre is they give you these really nice, instructions on everything you need to do. I mean, I printed this off our website. So again, one of the nice things Delphi does is, if you're looking at this item on our website, on the left-hand side, there's a spot there. It has these that you can just download, or you can just read them, or save them to your computer, or print them off, whatever. And you can just follow their directions. But one thing that Val and I really wanted to talk about a bit was that, they do a great job of telling you, like, how much frit you should use. They talk about how many grams, so you can actually weigh the frit. And then they give you a firing schedule. But let me just read just a small part of it for you just for a second, just to give you an idea. So when they're talking about, that's the slumping one, sorry. So when they're talking about fusing, they tell you to go to, the temperature is 1300 to 1320 degrees. And then they say the hold time is 45 minutes to 60 minutes. And so the reason for the range is because every kiln is different. And you just really have to I know if you've watched Val and I talk about fusing before, we say this all the time, you just have to get used to the kiln you're using. If it's your kiln or if it's one at your studio that you're going to, you just got to get used to how it fires. We have a couple of kilns here that fire about 10 degrees hotter than the rest of them, and so we adjust our schedules as we go. I fired this piece it was at the 1320, and I did it for 55 minutes. For some reason, I just picked 55 minutes. And to me, I should have gone hotter, because if you look at, like in comparison, some of these other leaves, even this one, do you see how this one is slightly shinier, right? So
smoother looking.
Yeah, and they're a little bit smoother, right? The edges are a little bit rougher because the glass didn't really have the opportunity to pull in. So so I learned a lesson, right? I learned that the next time I do this project, instead of going to 1320, that particular kiln I was using, I need to go a little bit hotter than that. Now, a lot of it also is just personal preference, right? So maybe you like this sort of a little bit more of a matte finish. In fact, I grabbed this one because this was one that the Color de Verre sent to us. And you can see it is not shiny at all.
It's way thin, too.
It is super thin. This was only powders and fired at a relatively low temperature to kind of keep that look to it, just that kind of matte finish. So
Yeah.
part of it is, whatever look you want, you got to figure out what temperature your kiln does at.
Well, and some of the things that we were going to talk about too, some of them, I don't know, Kaylee, some of these over here are really thick that I did. Yeah, and so, filling the mold up to the edge and then even mounding a little bit on top where you can, is going to give you a thicker piece, right? It's going to give you a much thicker piece. But the reason why you need the extra amount of glass, though, is if you're going to go to a full fuse where the glass is going to become molten, it actually, you need that so that it doesn't all just draw up on itself and maybe not even at the end fill the entire mold. So if you know what I mean, you've got to have enough glass in there so that when the glass wants to seek that thickness, when it wants to seek that 1/4 inch thickness, when it's in its molten state, you want to make sure there's enough glass in that mold so that when it sucks in, you don't have, a leaf without one of the ends or something like that. I mean, there's a few molds that are a little problematic trying to get it to go. But the bottom line is when you fuse to a full fuse with these, then you're going to probably want a little more glass, and it's probably a pretty sure thing, although you're going to get a thicker piece. So the trick kind of comes in, right, when we don't want them quite so thick. So for me, this is easy. I just fill the mold. I put a little up on top for kind of a little bit of a secondary melt in case I have any grabbing on the sides as the level drops. But when you do something thinner, then you have to kind of be a little careful, because I think in this situation, this is one where it's pretty thin, and we talked about this. We're not exactly entirely sure. It's that mold right in front of you, Kayla, if you want to stick it in there.
Sure do.
So when you put it in the mold and you look, you can see how there isn't enough glass that goes even out to the tips of that leaf. It's all kind of sucked in on itself. So one, it tells me my temperature was too hot for the amount of glass I probably had in there. And then I went kind of fast, and so I'm not sure if that bubble was necessarily because of that. So there, like he just said, he learned something. We kind of laugh about this all the time, but I'm not kidding you. After all these years we've been doing this, it's almost daily we go, oh, gee.
Yeah, we learn something new, right?
Oh, I guess I didn't think that. Yeah. So there's always something to be learned. So, I was thinking bunch of little pieces. I'm not worried about thermal shocking them. I'm doing it the night before I need it. I need to go really fast. I need it to be cool in the morning at my house so I can drive, a bunch of things. So I sort of learned my lesson. I think maybe that was just a little too fast. So it was too hot for the amount of frit I had, and I think I went too fast. I think those were my two issues.
A couple things, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So then we did it again, and we're going to talk, I'm just going to show you this, and then Roy's going to talk to you about his, sometimes how he does things a little different, because a lot of these directions from these mold manufacturers actually do give you a weight so that you could, weigh what you've got, weigh your mold, put it in your glass, and then figure out if you've got the correct weight, and then that's going to ensure maybe that you have enough glass. I kind of don't do it that way. I just sort of put it in and guess it. But anyhow, so this one did turn out okay, and then, but I like a little bit thinner. Right?
Yeah,
I think we liked a little bit thinner. So this one, and I have the firing schedules that I did so that Kaylee can post them if you guys want them. But this one was not a full fuse. This one was only to 1400. So I only went to 1400 for the 15 minutes.
Let's show the back really quick.
Okay.
Because that's, I think, really where you can tell.
Yeah, you
the
see all the
difference.
texture that's in there.
Yeah, it's not a...
What size frit did you use, though?
Looks like medium.
It was all medium.
Yeah, that's what
a little bit
too.
of fine. There was a little bit of fine I sprinkled in. But, yeah, so, like I say, once again, two things. I didn't go to a full fuse, and I didn't fill it really full. So this was the difference between, doing something that, like I said, is more thick. And then the same thing. And then Roy stuck these pieces of fiber blanket, this was a nice way. We could showed you in this one how I sort of set it off center in the round mold, and that's how I got the bend. A lot of these I just stuck in molds and then kind of overhung. But you can also use, we have my flame working room have lots of extra chunks.
That's where I stole that from.
Yeah, of the fiber blanket. It starts to break down over time, and sometimes it's not. But it's really good to wad up and then just sort of, give your pieces some movement, right?
Yeah, I was trying to look for something a little more organic. You know,
did this
I
one.
mean, I did. That's a real nice one.
This one's kind of weird.
I think that piece is going to be for sale later.
I think this is, it just doesn't look right, but that's okay.
Are you kidding? It looks like
Well,
an insect or something.
I know.
We'll take votes.
Okay, but anyway, that's kind of a nice use if you do have extra fiber paper or fiber blanket. I mean, this is actually the fiber blanket, so that's kind of a way to do that. And if you don't have a lot of extra molds, that would give you some options.
Yeah, the fiber blanket was a little more durable than I was expecting. I thought it might condense a little when I fired it, and it didn't. It held up real well. So I mean, that's a positive thing, I guess.
Right.
But if you know that going into it, so a lot of it, as Val was talking about, was temperature has to do with how thick you're making the pieces. So if you're trying to go nice and thin, like these, a lot of these came from the Color de Verre one. So this is the one that I made, and again, I was I weighed out it was like 500 grams of glass, and so I weighed it out specifically. But then again, I only went to like 1320 degrees, right? So if I'm going hotter, then you have to be a little more careful about what the thickness is going to be like.
So is that clear, do you think? Did we make that clear enough? About when the glass is at a full fuse temperature, if you don't have enough glass in there, it's going to suck up to be that 1/4 of an inch, and you're going to have some voids in your molds. Okay.
Here, let's put that in there and we can show the difference.
Okay.
Yeah, it still pulls in a tiny bit, right? But
not nearly
not
as
a
much
ton.
as it does
Yeah, not
right
what it's
there.
doing here. Again, as Val keeps talking about, is the 1/4 inch rule, or sometimes people call it the 6 millimeter rule, right? Glass wants to be that thickness when it's molten, so if you get it hot enough, then the glass will try to get there, right? It's going to pull in and shrink in and do what it can to get there. So if you don't want it to do that, then you control that by temperature, right? So don't go so hot. Right. But you can see that. I mean, again, I did this one at 1320. Val did this one at 1400. So there's, I mean, again, depending on the look you want, you can get a much different look, right? So that's the back of the one that I did, and that's the back of the one she did. Now I did mainly fine frit, not medium like she did. And I think on this side I did use some powders, but you can't really see them because they're too subtle. But and then like if you see these leaves, this is a great example. So this one here, they use powder first, and then kind of sifted it in here, and then so it will fall. And if you tap on the mold, especially, it will kind of settle down into the lower spots. And then you go in with medium frit or fine frit, and then fill it up, and then so you can get some detail. Kind of if you're trying to accentuate, all these were done that way too. If you're trying to accentuate the vein, it's a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then, well, hopefully you guys know that if you've watched this enough that you can always reach out to us if you have questions. So, I mean, you can make a comment in the section below, or you can reach us on Instagram, or you can email us at Facebook. I missed one, didn't I? Nope, that was it?
Message us on Facebook.
Oh, message us on Facebook.
Instagram, and then our email is facebook@delphiglass.com.
DelphiGlass.com.
We don't have our sheet. Can you tell?
I know.
I don't know where it is.
It's over.
I know.
Over
Okay.
there, so.
All right.
Sorry. Oh, I wanted to show another one real quick. So I asked somebody at work here, Madison, that works in the store, and I asked her if she wanted to make something, and I just showed her the molds, and she picked out the ginkgo mold, which I thought was kind of fun, and then she made this mobile with it. Yeah, you can see the plate that was done with the ginkgo leaves too, right? So which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's really cute. But it is that is what some people do with these castings. If you cast it and you don't cast it too thick, then you can do it as a as a detail on something that you've already fused, which I think this is really cute idea.
It is. Yeah, it's just tack fused on, if you can see that.
Yeah.
So.
Twist it sideways.
Oh, sorry. Do you want me? I can hold it. Do you want?
And that's actually relatively thin.
Yeah. All right.
Mm-hmm. Did you get it?
Yeah, and they're just tack fused on, so just again, just hot enough to do that.
Because I'm sure they're going to ask, was it tack fused before you slumped it?
Yes.
Not at the same time.
Not at the same time. Main reason why, 3 different temperatures, right? So the piece was fused first at one temperature, and the ginkgo leaves were done in a mold separately, right? And then tack fused and then slumped. So 3 steps to get that. And again, the nice thing about these color de vera people, at least they give you a starting point. Is how you always want to think of farming schedules. And they give a slumping schedule too and a tack fuse schedule in here for any of the leaves to kind of give you an idea of what you might.
Sorry.
You're moving it.
I'm
Moving
sorry.
the table.
I wanted my leaf back
She
over
wanted her
here.
leaf back.
Yes. So what else? So
What else?
I was going to say something, and I'm not sure. Oh, this one. So, some of the, then in the vein of thinking, well, what do you do with these things? Because we kind of have that conversation in my fusing class. I really think these castings are fun. I just think it's so much fun. I think it's a great way to use up scrap. You just chunk it up, and with the frit, you're able to probably get much more detail. But sometimes all your scrap can be really cool just to chunk it up and throw it in some of these molds as well. So this big one, what kind of leaf is that?
It's a monstera leaf.
Monstera leaf. This is a monstera leaf, and this was just slumped. I mean, it looked just like this, and then we just turned it upside down and slumped it over.
And draped it over one of the
yes.
forms, right?
Do we have one over here?
There's usually one there. I don't see it.
While Val looks, Michelle is asking,
Yes.
how is the string attached to the mobile?
Oh, good. Great question. So Madison is like a master at drilling. So she drilled all these holes, and this is just fish line. And then how she attached them to the ginkgo leaves, though, was she used a ring saw and cut 2 little grooves on either side here, and then wrapped that with the fish line, and she added a little bit of glue to that, and her and I had discussed like what kind of glue to use, and my suggestion would have been silicone, but she used a little well bond, which will work. It just looks a little white because the well bond takes a little while to dry clear, but and then she just glued that just to help it not slide out so much. But
Thanks for asking.
yeah, thanks for the question.
Is this the one?
Yeah. Looks like it.
Yeah, look at that. Might not have been.
No, it might not have been. I think it might have been this one. That's the only thing you have to kind of be a little careful of is, it was this one. I'm afraid with that one we might have draped down and hit the shelf. And then, but anyway, it's a little bit unique, right? I mean, and then you can use it as a candle shelter or whatever you want to do. But
yeah, we have another one. Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
We haven't. This one was also slumped like into a little bit more like a bowl, and so sometimes the mold they used here was not flat on the bottom, so we just use these little rubber bumpers, I guess they're called, just to so now when it sits, it's it's stable and it's not rocking all over the place. This is one that was, you can see, pretty simple, right? So these 3 individual leaves were tack fused together, and then this is slumped. It's pretty subtle, but it's got just a slight little kind of bend on the edges.
So same thing, 3 leaves, tack fused first, flat.
That would be a great centerpiece.
And then it's really cute too. That's really a cute idea. So you could do that with several of these.
Yeah, I know. We were gonna we had talked about doing it, but we didn't have a lot of molds. We only had 1 mold. So like of the autumn leaf, we only had the maple leaf. We only had 1 mold, so we could only do things one day at a time, right? So it was. Didn't give us a lot of time.
Yeah, so that's kind of, I think, we've covered
I think that's covered it, right? We covered all the
Well, do you want to
technical
just
stuff?
briefly talk about the weight? How if they have a mold that they don't have directions to, then there is a way. I mean, you might have to experiment once, but you could always.
Yeah, you'll probably have to experiment once. I think we started our talk that way, saying that a lot of times, especially I've noticed with these casting things, and if you haven't done them before, or if it's a new casting mold, maybe you've done a lot of casting, but it's a brand new casting mold, there's still always a little bit of experimenting that goes on. So, one simple thing you could do, let's use Val's thing. So she did this, right? And then so she immediately said, well, maybe I should have used more glass. All you have to do is take this piece and weigh this, right? And get the weight of this, whether it's grams or ounces or whatever. And then that gives you a starting point. So if you thought that it should have filled more of the mold, then you would just need to add some weight to whatever the number is you have here.
Weigh your mold. Weigh your mold first. Weigh this separate, right?
Yeah.
And then once you start filling your mold, you can subtract the weight of your mold. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be
No,
remedial,
yep.
but my brain doesn't really function in
That's
high
exactly
gear that
what you
way.
have to
So
do.
I
Yep.
just want to make sure that it's, because that's really, I can handle that.
Yeah, I mean, because most people aren't going to probably weigh the glass out beforehand, because especially if you're working with, frit, and you might not know how much yellow you want to put in with the green, right? So, like Val said, if you weigh the mold beforehand, you know how much it weighs, you can subtract that from the weight as you're going.
And also, too, with these molds that are that have the detail in the bottom, they're meant to be done like an upside down cake.
Yes.
So when
good
you
point.
flip it out, right? So some
this should be the bottom side.
Yes.
And then this
Yes.
is the top side.
Yeah, that's really the top side.
yes, but you're building it in reverse, right? So also, people get a little, when they start doing these, they get a little bit overwhelmed thinking, well, I do have to get quite a bit of glass in there just to make sure, even if I'm not going to fill it all the way up. And then to get the detail on the bottom, which will be your front, right? That's really all you need, is to make sure that you coat the bottom of that mold where the detail is. And then if you want to, depending on the weight you're trying to achieve or depending on how much you want to fill it, you can just backfill. So you could backfill with just all clear, or, you know what I mean? You get your pattern and your color design down on the bottom, and then you don't have to keep layering those colors in the same spot to build it up. You can just kind of, because almost all of mine are backfilled with clear.
Yeah, but I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Mine are the same way.
You can't really tell because when the clear melts into the green, it looks green, right? But basically, I just put,
You can tell on.
okay, the colors.
that one
of,
you can definitely
yeah.
tell.
So you can see where the
So-
color line is and where the clear line
Yeah,
is.
when they're thicker, you can definitely tell. And so, depending on what you want to do with them, often that doesn't matter that you've backfilled the. Sometimes I'll backfill all in black, if I really want that kind of a background to it. So, once again, good way to use your scrap.
Yes.
Not just worry about using your frit and trying to layer all those areas up high. So.
Yeah, I did on this particular one use the new Yakagani frit. The if you're a 96 person, Yakagani came out with the line of frit to match their sheet glass. That's what this one was, and we hadn't used it a lot personally, so I wanted to try it out. But it is. I did green and white, and then just this is all clear here in the back, which I know is hard to tell because.
Yeah, the thicker that layer is, the easier it is to tell, right? So these are not
Yeah.
very thick, so it's hard to tell, but it is definitely not layering those greens and whites all that way up.
No. So.
Okay, well then I think, I don't know, no questions.
That was it, Michelle. Yeah.
Everybody's
thanks.
got it. Everybody's knows,
right.
then good.
Well, thanks for joining us. I think we'll probably be back in a couple of weeks. That's usually our plan.
That's our plan.
Not sure what we're going to talk about, but maybe you guys were talking about something beforehand. You got
Maybe.
something up your sleeve.
We've got some
All right.
ideas.
Cool.
And if you have ideas, let us
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
Yeah, please.
And we'd
reach
much
out.
rather do what you want to see than,
Yeah,
like leaves. That was
my idea. So
it was his idea. I will let you
thought it was a
I will
good
let
one.
you take credit for that.
Thanks.
That it was
We
your
just
idea.
got a heart, so somebody
Oh,
likes
thank
it.
you.
Aw, see?
Yeah, that's
Well, it was
probably
good.
my kid or something.
That's right, your wife. Okay,
right, well,
well, we'll
thanks for
see
joining
you
us
in a
today.
couple
Yep.
of weeks then.
All right.
Okay.